Well, good morning or afternoon or evening, 7th graders. This is screencast number 1. This is just to go through a few things that I think are interesting related to Chinese culture. As always, I would have you write down what's in black and not italicized. And with the screencast, you can pause it anytime you want to and get it caught up, especially those of you in 707 who sometimes seem to take a little bit longer. Anyway, so other aspects of Chinese culture. And what I really want you to look at with these is how these aspects of culture really relate to the philosophies we just talked about. So here we go. So we'll start with food. Everybody likes Chinese food. First of all, the kind of overall part of this that I notice as being part of the philosophies is the harmony and the balance. Think about with Taoism, there's a contrast here, but it goes together. So they look for the colors, the textures, and the shapes. And this is a great example of yin and yang. Yin is, they would say, is cooling food. It's paler in color. It's more mild tasting, lower in calories. For example, green tea and bean curd. Boy, doesn't that sound good? Those things would go kind of the yin, the yang, are warmer, so spicier things or red meat. And you can see how those things kind of balance out. Also, the 5 elements. I talked about the 5 elements yesterday with Taoism too, or whenever you're listening to this. And those kind of come out as the flavors. So they try to balance the 5 flavors: sour, bitter, sweet, spicy, salty. Again, the balance, the combination of all those things, taking everything into account. They also will do several different dishes all as one course. Instead of having, this is the first course, just eat this. The second course, they put everything together. So grain together with vegetables, with meat. Soups are there too with part of the meal. And that's really more like a drink, like a hot broth or something like that. So that's the food. So again, you can see some examples of how the food relates to those philosophies. I thought it was interesting when they prepare it. There's 2 reasons that they cut it into small pieces. One, I've always thought it was because they use chopsticks, so they don't have fork and knife. They have to have it cut up to use chopsticks. But secondly, and I thought this was interesting, is they do that so it cooks faster. You can conserve fuel. You don't need to use as much wood or coal to cook it because it doesn't take as long if it's smaller pieces. And then a wok. You've probably all seen a wok before. All that means is cooking utensil, but we call it a wok because that's the word for it there. And then stir frying is a big way they would cook that food. Tea. China is always associated with tea, and there's a saying there: better to go without salt for 3 days than without tea for a single day. I'm not a tea drinker, but I guess people that like tea like tea. It's used as a medicine. They count it as a vegetable. It's also a religious offering, and it's an aid to meditation. So if you're meditating in kind of a Taoist kind of thing, or even Buddhism, tea's a part of that. So the different kinds of tea, and I didn't know this until I was reading about it. Green tea is just unfermented. They don't do much to it. Oolong is partially fermented, and black is fully fermented. So green tea is a little bit more in its natural state. And tea is made from leaves. That plant originated in China, and then it spread to a lot of other places, but that's why tea is associated with China. And it does have a lot of natural positive elements. It's an antiseptic, so it kills germs. Antioxidants, which are, you hear that a lot with people today talking about food, that helps fight some diseases. So that's the food. Cooking is very regional. When we think of Chinese food, at least when I think of Chinese food, I think of all of it as one thing. But really, it's the different regions. And if you think of the United States, we're kind of that way too. There's some southern food, there's eastern food, there's Tex-Mex food. So different regions have different food. And you can just kind of see down this list here, you can find your favorites and see what region it's from. So 5 main regions and then 5 different kinds of food. Okay, new topic, traditional Chinese medicine. They focus on holistic health care, meaning it's not just, well, you're sick, so here, take some medicine. They try to, number 1, prevent disease and then keep balance in your life. So it's part of a diet. They use herbal medicine, so more natural kinds of medicine. Acupuncture, which I'll talk about here in a second. Massage and exercise. 1, 2, 3. So again, there's 5 things there, like the 5 elements. So it's not just a traditional Chinese medicine is a little bit different than like what we would say is Western medicine. There's a lot of Taoist influence on this. Remember the whole thing about balance with Taoism and yin and yang. They would see the body as a balanced energy system. They said, well, a disease is caused by energy imbalance. So there's something off kilter, off balance with you in your body. So they look at the whole body. Again, 5 elements, 5 major organs: the liver, the heart, the spleen, the lungs, and the kidney. They see that as, those are the major things. So you got to make sure those are working. They say there's this thing called the qi, Q-I, qi, which is kind of translates as life force. They say this is like an energy circulating in the body, and there are different energy points that allow the proper flow of qi. So if some of those energy points are blocked, then you're not getting the energy to your body that you think you should. They said that might be blocked through emotions, physical things, or even environmental things, like where you live or the things around you. So to give a diagnosis in traditional Chinese medicine, you need the full details of a patient's diet, their environment, their family, all that stuff. They also look very closely at the face, the skin, the eyes, and the tongue. Now, I'm not saying this is the way to go. I'm just saying this is how they traditionally practice medicine. And there are people today, this is kind of a new agey thing, where people think, oh, this is the way to go. It's so natural, it's so organic, that kind of stuff. And that could be, but again, traditional Chinese medicine. So a big part of their treatment is diet. What are you eating? What are you putting in your body? And then herbs, again, natural things. Here again, they've got the yin and the yang. So there's yin illnesses and yang food. So if you have a yin illness, whatever that is exactly, I don't know. I don't practice traditional Chinese medicine. But if it's a yin illness, you should eat yang food. And vice versa. If you have a yang illness, you should eat yin food. If you have certain cravings, like, oh, I really want salt, or I really want sweet, or I really want meat, that would show what's wrong with you. So what your body is missing, that's what you're craving. And then herbal remedies contain a lot of nutrients. So again, nothing wrong with that exactly. As early as 1578, they were aware of 1,898 medical substances. And the other thing that's kind of interesting is there's like a chief herb, and then deputy and assistant herbs, and an envoy, which helps the other things do their job. So I forgot a quote there on the envoy. So a lot of times that would be given as a tea, or it would be put into pills, like dried and crushed and put into pills, or as an ointment to go into the skin. So very different way of practicing medicine. So if any of your parents are doctors, you should see what they think about this. Again, I'm not saying this is the way to go. I'm just saying this is what some people believe and think and do. And really, when you look back at it, there's not a whole lot of negative to it. It's kind of a natural way of doing things. So who knows? I don't know. And the last thing here, acupuncture. So you see the picture there. What they do is they take these really, really fine needles, very, very thin needles, and they put them along the energy lines of the body. You can see that kind of a map there. So an acupuncturist would put the needles in. Again, this is the whole idea of getting that qi energy flowing to go overcome these blockages of qi energy. Usually 5 to 15 needles, and I've never had acupuncture, not a big believer in that, but they say that it's kind of a tingling or a numbing sensation when you have that done. So it's not like, ow, that's a needle in my arm. It's more of a kind of a numbing thing. Also real big on movement and meditation. Qigong, moving into and holding positions while controlling breathing and keeping the body relaxed. Again, sounds very much like meditation, like with Taoist or Buddhist. And then Tai Chi, you may have heard or seen people doing Tai Chi. The diagram there on the right, that's someone going through the Tai Chi motions. And a lot of people in China get together in the mornings in parks and do Tai Chi together. Very slow, controlled, meditative movements. Both of those things, Qigong and Tai Chi, are the basis of martial arts. So there's a lot of connections to that too. So again, traditional Chinese medicine is kind of controversial. People say, well, it's like superstition, it's a placebo, which is the idea that just because I'm doing something, I'm going to get better because I think I'm going to get better. Sort of again, a placebo effect. And some people say it's kind of dangerous because you might avoid modern medicine, or I was going to say actual medicine, that might really help cure you or help with some kind of a disease. So I'll let you figure that out. Think about that a little bit. It's an interesting topic. So, all right, that's number one. I'll see you here in just a second with second screencast.